Hi guys, this is gsn.com and I'm here with the LG G6 for a full review. We've already reviewed the Galaxy S8, HTC U11 and a bunch of other flagships, and now it's the turn of the LG flagship of 2017. It was the first curved corner 18:9 aspect handset when it debuted in March this year, and it came at Mobile World Congress 2017 with Dolby Vision, with a nifty screen and a lot of innovation. It ditched the modularity of the LG G5 and brought some new stuff. Now the price has really gone down. It was $700 at first, and now it can even be found below $500 on Amazon, which is crazy good. We get a glass and metal phone that's water resistant, and now let's talk about the design for a bit. So this one is a 5.7 incher with a glass back, this time gently curved. As you can see, we get a pretty sturdy and quite hefty metal frame and an 80% screen to body ratio, at least on paper. Those curved corners of the screen are certainly unique, and I have to say that LG is one of the few companies that still uses the power button at the back side of the phone with the fingerprint scanner there. Now, this black version of the phone is a fingerprint magnet, but overall, for a 5.7 incher, I would say that it's very comfy to wield even with a single hand. Although it's quite a long phone, it's meant for landscape use to get advantage of the 18:9 aspect and enjoy your videos. Now, this time around, LG has implemented water and dust proofing, IP68, and also, surprise surprise, military standard 810G tested for shocks. 7.9mm in thickness like the Galaxy S7, and it weighs 163 grams. As a comparison, the Galaxy S8 is around 8mm, 155 grams, so that one is lighter, and the HTC U11 is exactly the same thickness, and it's 6 grams heavier. The phone comes in white, black, gold or blue, and it's quite nice looking. It has its own personality, and just as I mentioned, it's lighter than the LG V20. Now, on the display front, there's quite a bit to say. So it's a unique proposition. The G5 had a bit of light bleed, had some problem. The G3 was the first with Quad HD, so it was always the screen that brought something new for the LGs. Now, this time, 5.7 inch Quad HD Plus, which is 2880 over 1440 pixels, full vision 18:9, Dolby Vision HDR, and we're supposed to get better dynamic range and contrast. The core here is an IPS LCD panel with rounded corners. Now, the G5 has a 5.3 incher, so the diagonal has increased. We do not have a video player, but I'm going to have to rely on the gallery application. Now, the viewing experience, let's see what it offers us. Okay, we got this test video here, and when you're playing a video, it feels totally immersive. I know I said that about the Galaxy S8 as well, but on the LG G6, it's also true. Even though the bezels are not as slim as the Galaxy S8, it's still immersive, and we got options like this pop-up play-like feature here, or better said Q-slide. We got also features for subtitles and make GIF. Now, as far as the actual screen experience goes, we're dealing here with very vivid colors, even for an IPS LCD, pretty wide view angles, I would say a very good contrast, even on a 35 degrees Celsius weather, and quite good brightness. Now let's see what our test showed us about the screen. Okay, so under the microscope, this is what the pixel setup of the screen looks like. We're dealing here with an RGB striped pixel setup. You're familiar with it, we've seen it on many IPS LCD panels. And the brightness, let's see how much we achieved. The top value was 418 lux units, which is okay, but it's no champion. Actually, in real life, it feels like it's a bit more than that. Anyways, it beats the LG G5 and it's 365 lux, the LG V10 and the HTC U11, believe it or not. Still, scores below the Xperia XZ and the Galaxy S8, obviously. Now, prepare for a very long section of the review because we have a ton, I do mean a ton, of settings for the display. So first, home screen. You can select home and go with home, easy home, or home and app drawer. As you can see, we do not have an app drawer. Let's go back here. There are lock screen settings. You can unlock it with a swipe or the knock code or the fingerprint scanner. You can select the screen swipe effect. You can change the icon shape if you want to, original or more rounded, the layout, grid and all that, smart bulletin, and let's see what else. Also in the screen section, you can tweak the theme, home touch buttons, font type and size, make the text bold, adjust the screen size of the apps via app scaling, which is quite important. You can enter it here and choose 16 to 9, 16.7 to 9 or 18 to 9. Quite a nifty feature to have. Display size, comfort view to reduce the eye strain and the blue hue, brightness, auto brightness, always on display, auto rotate, screen timeout and more. Knock on and screensaver. Now the always on screen goes something like this. Put the phone here, you can already see it, you can see the info, the hour, the notifications and things happening here using very little power. So overall, quite a good screen. It feels brighter than what the Luxmeter told us, and frankly I have no big objection here. And if you really want to watch video on the go, it's nice to binge on some Netflix on this device. Now on the hardware front, let's see what we're dealing with here. So this machine uses a last gen processor. It's the Snapdragon 821. It's not the 835, sadly. It's accompanied by 4 GB of RAM and also 32 or 64 GB of storage plus a microSD card slot. At least, in spite of the fact we have a last gen CPU, we did not experience any lag. We played with as many apps as we wanted with zero delays, lags and problem, believe me. Even when alternating between games, zero issues appeared, and Riptide GP Renegade ran like a champ. No objections here. Okay, Riptide GP Renegade, it already accessed it fast, that's a plus. Quick race, pick this track. I'm in love with these flagships that always enter the race fast, unlike the mid-rangers and entry levels which take a while to load the race. Now, I'm happy with the way the water looks, console level. In about a few days, this game will turn 1 year old and it's still our favorite benchmark game. Pretty good frame rate here. Loving the textures, effects and all the other things. Okay, the gaming checks out. Now it's time to do some benchmarks. We actually did them already. It's time to actually analyze them. Now in quadrant, 32k points, which means we beat the Motorola Moto Z but scored below the Galaxy S7 Edge. A more relevant test is perhaps Antutu 6, and forgive me for not finding it fast. It's very inconspicuous on account of having a lot of white in the background. A huge score, believe me, huge. A 5th placed from all of the phones we've tested, beats the OnePlus 3 and the Google Pixel XL, not bad, and it scores below the HTC U11 and Galaxy S8, but not by as much as you think. Now, this is the GPU test, the gamers test, 3D Mark I Storm Unlimited, pretty respectable score, 27k points. It beats the Huawei P10 and the Huawei Mate 9, but scores below the Galaxy S8 and the S7. Now in Geekbench 4, the interesting behavior, let's not lose it. So Geekbench 4, we actually surpassed the Google Pixel XL again and the OnePlus 3, which is nice to see, and score below the Galaxy S8 and the HTC U11. In the end, good performance, and it surpasses other phones that have the same CPU. We also did some temperature tests, and this is an area where we do not have good news. Now, when we run GFX Bench, we found an okay value of 37 degrees Celsius. That's okay, but when we played some games like Riptide GP, we got all the way up to 47.9 degrees Celsius, which is serious overheating, one of the hottest phones we've tested lately. So keep in mind, if you're doing some gaming here, you record some overheating the backside close to the top area. Keep that in mind. Now with the performance checked out, let's see other aspects such as the battery. So it's time to talk about the battery of the handset. It's a 3300 mAh unit and the G5 had a 2800 mAh unit, so that's quite the jump. Now let's go to the screenshots because that's where we find the values we achieved. I'm going to start off with the continuous HD video playback time. We achieved 11 hours and 37 minutes of continuous HD video playback, which is good for one season of a TV show. It beats the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus and the Asus Zenfone 3 Max, which is actually a battery phone, but scores below the Galaxy S8 and the Google Pixel XL. And now the big disappointment, one of the biggest disappointments of this phone comes here in PC Mark. 5 hours 27 minutes. It's very underwhelming. It's the 116th placed phone from all the phones we've tested, and it's a bit of a letdown. It's above the LG V10 and the LG G4, but below the G5 and also the Pixel XL and the Galaxy S8, more than double its battery life. That's a problem in my book. Now the charging is quite okay, 1 hour and 46 minutes. It's superior to the Huawei P10 at least, and 5 minutes of charging means 5%, 15 minutes 15%, 30 minutes 33%, and 1 hour is 72%. So that's something to remember, juices up the phone reasonably. And if you want some options for this battery, you're going to have to go here. The regular options, we got stuff like battery saver, which will block the use of always on display if you want, and game battery saver with extended, maximum, or custom, where you can tweak your use of the feature. If it's activated, you can actually play with the resolution and the frame rate of the game. So we have special features for the gamers, thumbs up for that. In the end, a mixed experience of the battery, good playback video, good video playback, but not so good continuous usage for gaming. Anyways, on the acoustics front, a singular speaker at the bottom here with this grill. And now let's actually go to the music player and see what it holds. So the LG G6 and its music player, just like a big portion of the interface, the screen gets divided into two squares, as you can see here, and we also have an equalizer. We can tweak the pitch and speed, and also play with the surround, quad beat, bass booster, treble booster, or do some custom work via those 5 custom channels. Now let's actually listen to the tunes. Okay, now some conclusions. We get here a pretty great bass, but the back vibrates a lot. We get a, I would say, upper mid-level volume, and the good news is that you will not cover the speaker with your hand when you're holding the phone like this. That's the good news. And I love the way the high notes are rendered here. So good bass, the volume could be better, and I like the high notes. Now we also did a decibel meter test, and let's see how that panned out. So we go here and let's see the values we achieved. So first, 84 decibels with our typical acoustic sample. This is not very impressive, and just for the sake of comparison, the LG G5 had 86.9 decibels in this test. At least we beat the Google Pixel XL but scored below the iPhone 7. Now when we ran games like Replay GP Renegade, 94.7 decibels, which is just okay. Once again, at least it beats the Galaxy S8 but scored below the Huawei P10. Now the headphones, you saw the unboxing of the LG G6, and the headphones look something like this. The portion you put in the ear is quite standard, but here we have a special wire that's shaped like a shoelace. It's tougher than usual. We have a spawn remote, and the actual listening experience, well, they're loud and clear, they have an excellent bass, they're comfy, but they're not much of a looker, to be honest, compared to what HTC or Samsung is offering. They don't feel as premium as those ones. At least the experience is quite satisfying. Okay, now that we're done with this, one last mention goes to the FM radio and the HD audio recorder. Time to discuss the camera now, and let's see what it brings. Okay, so the camera, just like on the predecessor, we have a dual camera here. So these are the two sensors, both are 13 megapixel sensors, and we got here the dual LED flash between them. So we got the first one, the 13 megapixel sensor with f1.8 aperture, and the other one which offers a wide angle lens, 125 degrees, and the first one has optical image stabilization, the second one doesn't. We got face detection autofocus, and the sensor is Sony IMX258. Now at the front we got a 5 megapixel shooter with a wide angle 100 degree lens. Now the camera UI, first let's do some cleaning and use our typical cube here. The camera UI is familiar if you saw the LG G5 before it. The camera app starts fast. I'm happy with the focus speed, and an interesting way here is the one you use to zoom in by simply dragging the shutter button, and it automatically switches between the two cameras, the wide angle one and the typical one. As you can see, the wide angle one catches a lot more field of view, as you can see here. Now the options are pretty straightforward. We got your auto capture, we got your square capture, which is actually a new thing. You can take a shot and preview it right away. Then you got your manual with a ton of options. We got focus, We got shutter, ISO, exposure, white balance, and a histogram here, nice to have. And then there's also a manual for video. We got effects, we got your modes, auto panorama, 360-degree panorama, food, pop-out, snap, slow-mo, time-lapse, and a bunch of settings related to resolution, HDR, timer, cheese shutter, and all that. So that's it in a nutshell. Fast photo taking, pretty okay, focus speed, an exposure meter here, and overall I'm happy with this interface. Not cluttered, pretty well organized. And now it's time to go to the gallery because we overdid it again. 317 shots. Oh boy, we have a lot of pictures for you. So they were taken on pretty hot days, that's for sure. We have nighttime pictures, we have indoor pictures, all of the kinds you can imagine. Now, I was very happy with one thing here, the colors. So I remember that when we tested the LG G5, I told you it had the best color calibration I've seen in my life. Well, this translates to the LG G6 again. And not only the colors, but the details are also quite good for a phone that does not have a 23 megapixel Xperia style camera. I'm happy with the lighting, with the colors and the clarity. You will not feel you're missing anything compared to the Huawei P10 or the Galaxy S8 or the HTC U11. The thing that this phone does better than those is the way it shows the contours of the images and of the objects. So let's say you have an object like this one, or you're seeing an object outside like those ones. Their contours are more clearly shown, and also some phones have problems with the sky on a very hot day. This one doesn't, at least not in the first shots. Everything is crisp, details are excellent. I'm loving the dynamic range, and the panorama is not bad at 18,960 over 3872. So good news is that photos are not burned even when the sun is very potent. And we also took wide shots, of course, and they look amazing. You can see them, they stand out a lot by offering the wider angle of view. Of course, they will be shown in full in our text review, but believe me, those wide shots may be a standalone reason to buy the phone if you're traveling and want to take larger field of view photos. Now, these are daytime shots, pretty impressive in color and clarity, details and dynamic range. Now, we also did selfies, and I have to say, not very pleased. The camera, the front, cannot handle the sun well. I'm also not happy with the details, and well, the colors and face texture are okay, but I feel that the face is a bit blurred when you start to zoom in. So maybe the Galaxy S8 and HTC U11 take better selfies. That's one aspect to remember if you're really about vanity. More selfies here. And still not very impressed, even though we have a wide angle selfie camera. Okay, so now we continue the analysis. I have to mention that the selfies also feel inferior to the iPhone 7, and I would call this one of the best phones of 2017 when it comes to color calibration, also clarity. It beats the Huawei P10 overall during the daytime and is the equal of the HTC U11 and Galaxy S8 in quality and detail. And it feels also like 10% superior to the LG G5 that itself was quite good during the day. Now, it's time for the low light capture. We also did that, and let's see what those shots have to tell us. Okay, so first things first, let's get this out of the way. Not as bright and not capturing as much light as the Galaxy S8 and HTC U11, that's for sure. But once again, those contours of objects are totally stunning, and I'm loving the color choice. Now, every now and then, when you're using the wide angle camera, you'll see a hint of blue or too much yellow in the shot, so maybe avoid taking shots at night with a wide angle camera, even though it's counterintuitive if you're a tourist. I would say that I'm happy, as you can see here, with the sources of light, the way they're rendered, the colors, the clarity, but even though the brightness is okay, it's not exactly Galaxy S8 okay. Not bad, maybe superior to the Huawei P10, but that's about it, or maybe even the equal of the Huawei P10. Now we're done with the photos, time for the videos, and boy do we have a doozy. Now we did 4K capture, we did 60 frames per second capture, you name it. And here we go. So one of the most disappointing aspects here was actually the stabilization, and let's try and find that first. Okay, so nope, not this one, not this one, and it should actually be this one here. So the microphone captured a pretty loud environment, but when the wind came, it didn't handle it very well, and I'm pretty underwhelmed by the stabilization test, and I'm going to tell you why. There's a bit of refocusing, and the clarity is not exactly what I wanted. Also, it's a bit shaky, so not the best stabilization, and the video also reveals that the colors are overblown, and a lot of the vegetation is burnt by the 40 degrees Celsius sun, so that's a bummer. Even though it looks swell on this small screen, believe me, you just saw the refocusing again and again, and the stabilization was underwhelming. Now, this one is a 4K video. I'm totally blown away by the hue of yellow I saw here. It actually looks very nice, one of the best yellows I've seen, but it may just be overblown and feeling nice just because it's actually exaggerated a bit. The clarity is excellent. This is 4K after all, so nothing to object about here. 50 megapixel bitrate, and that's the 4K video. So you saw stabilization, 4K. We even used the front camera to film, and once again, I'm not impressed. Wasn't impressed by the selfies, wasn't impressed by the video either. Now we also did a 60 frame per second video, which actually moved to the other camera, the wide angle one, and somehow this camera catches more realistic colors. It burns things less, the sky looks a bit more decent, and all the colors are actually better calibrated than the other camera for some reason, the other sensor I mean. Good brightness, no refocusing, or maybe on account that it has a different type of focus. From what I've heard, it should be fixed focus. Anyway, in the end I would say it's slightly superior to the Huawei P10, and it may be able to fight previous gen phones, but not the current ones. It's inferior to the Galaxy S8 and HTC U11, that's sure. I'm talking about the burnt images, I'm talking about the stabilization problems, I'm also talking about the details. If you zoom in once, you can already see you're missing out on the details, and that's a problem. So maybe fighting the Huawei P10, but not even to the level of the Google Pixel XL. So we're done now with the daytime video capture. Let's go to the nighttime video capture, see what happens there, and here we go. Okay, so low light video. There's a problem with a narrow bezel screen. You'll keep messing things up and pressing the wrong thing. And one example of low light video capture is this one here. And believe me, it's underwhelming. So MP4 Full HD 17 megapixel 30 frames per second. It's actually very weak. There's a lot of grain. We got total detail loss when zooming in. The light and everything feels very yellow. It's shaky. The image vibrates when you walk. We should get stereo audio recording, but I'm not impressed. It's clearly below the flagships and even some mid-range phones, so this did not impress me one bit. You can forget about low light capture, it's underwhelming. And the daytime one was, well, Huawei P10 level, which itself was not the best. Now, let's go to other aspects, such as the web browser. For example, we got Chrome pre-installed here, and this Chrome achieved, I would say, reasonable results. One reasonable result was in SunSpider 600 ms. That's a reasonable score, even though Microsoft Edge browser achieves 2 times that. Reasonable loading speeds, okay fluidity of the scrolling, and this is the keyboard that LG offers here. So we got QWERTY and the numeric row. Now it's time to discuss the connectivity. Now on the connectivity front, I would say we're all covered up with all the modern options. We got your Bluetooth 4.2, Wi-Fi A, B, G, and AC, Wi-Fi Direct, NFC, DLNA, Miracast, HD voice, Wi-Fi calling, and you can actually do something interesting here. From what I read, you can connect to musical instruments as a MIDI device. That's nice. So GPS, we got audio jack here at the top, we got an USB Type-C port at the bottom. What else? The phone has single SIM and dual SIM versions. There's 4G LTE category 11 available here. The calls were loud and clear, nothing to object here, and the noise cancelling was quite okay. There's speed dial and voicemail, and we did a bunch of speed tests, and let's see what that brought us. Now, speed tests is what I promised, and this is what you get. So in Wi-Fi we achieved 258 megapixel downloads, 25 megapixel uploads, and in 4G 114 over 49 download and upload. So we're well within limits. Now on the software front, this is Android 7.0 Nougat with a custom LG UI on top. They call it full screen UX. There's a tendency to use 2 squares here because they actually fit into this format. So you get the 2 squares in apps like for example Calendar, two squares, you already saw them in the music app, and several other features and applications. Even the camera, as you saw before. We have an always on screen, the text here and the color choice, everything is minimalistic and rather flat, but the colors are quite intense. As you can see, we do not have an app drawer, although that's by choice. You can actually select it and use it. And let's see what else. Multitasking is done via carousel, and you can do split screen if you want. So on the one side I'm going to use the gallery, and on the other side I can view the month here, play with the calendar, check out some photos. This works best in the landscape mode. You can actually resize the windows, keep doing one thing and then the other, well, when it works. And gallery once, calendar twice, maybe expand it a bit. I'm guessing it's better used like this, so you can resize and you can keep doing two things at one time. You can write an email and check your calendar at the same time. Now the drop down bit of the screen is this one here. Is very clean, very well organized. It's all white with black toggles. Okay, I'm going to shut this down, clear all, and from what I know, you can actually alternate between two apps by keeping this pressed, from what I know. Okay, so other things we're mentioning here: if you pinch or keep the screen pressed, you can trigger the widgets, themes, home screen settings, and app trash. These are the widgets in keeping with the UI, transparent and white, actually feeling a bit like the ones from the Galaxy S8. Theme, home screen settings, we've already seen the bulk of them in the display section. And now we're off to the settings, where things are either tabbed or listed. Connectivity, tethering, sound and notification, vibration, strength, do not disturb, display, everything was analyzed. General, language, keyboard, accounts, cloud, accessibility, shortcut keys, fingerprints, and smart settings. You can achieve some automation when some activities happen or you reach a certain place on the map. Power saving, memory, smart doctor, which actually keeps tabs on your phone. You can optimize it, optimize your usage, clean up the cache, the memory, maybe search for some malware, delete temporary files, stop unused apps, and generally make your battery, CPU, RAM, and maybe even the connectivity run better. Quite useful to have a doctor, and it actually goes very in depth. I expected something superficial, it's actually not. So you go here, you get to the diagnose area, and things will get pretty intense. Test hardware, as you can see, we got gyroscope, motion sensor, accelerometer, so you can do a diagnostic of your own, which is nice. And now we also have a fingerprint scanner at the back here within the power button, and let's see if it's any good. We can alternate it with a knock code or a pattern or a pin. And the 7-step setup will allow you to scan the print. Doing it quite fast. That was much faster than other phones, and sadly, even though it should happen very fast, my authentication, it may seem fast, but the animation is a bit too long, which makes the process feel slow. Even though it's fast, it actually feels slow on account of the animation. So fast but seeming slow. You probably noticed that the leftmost home screen belongs to the Smart Bulletin, which is an aggregator of your features like LG Health, Calendar, Music, Evernote, Smart Settings, and whatever else you want. And that's about it. You also have Google Assistant integration here, and the pre-installed apps, we actually counted them. There's 41 of them, quite a few. And among the most useful, we find Quick Memo Plus, which lets you take a memo and uses some pretty nifty brushes here. And let's see what else. We got tasks, we got LG Health, which has evolved, LG Smart World, the own app store that LG proposes, File Manager, Smart Doctor, LG Friends Manager. There's the app trash, Facebook and Evernote, and LG Health, as I said before, with a pedometer and a variety of other features, and even the option to trace your path. Okay, so that's about it. Those are the apps we have here, and now it's time for the verdict. Now on the Pro side, this is a pretty revolutionary phone with a curved corner screen, Dolby Vision 18:9 and the works, and it actually makes very good use of the 18:9 thing. If there was a perfect phone for Amazon, Netflix and Hulu, this is it. It's got a pretty solid screen, good performance in spite of having a last gen CPU, better price than the rivals. It's already below $500 in many places. It takes good and great pictures. It has a pretty nice interface and features to go with it. And other things we're mentioning here, well, I would say that it's waterproof, that's another plus, and it's quite comfy for a device that has such a large diagonal. Now those are the pros. Now on the con side, the video capture was a bit of a letdown. The continuous usage of the battery should have been a bit better, and the optical image stabilization was also a bit of a letdown when we tested it. And the fingerprint scanner speed was on the slow side on account of the animation, and I feel that the screen could be brighter, at least on paper. We have a Snapdragon 801 CPU, which should be a Snapdragon 835. The selfies were not that impressive, and the lack of feature on some market is a problem. So as you know, some of the markets in the world are not getting wireless charging, they're not getting the same amount of features of this phone all over the world. Believe me, that may be a problem for some people who want the full package of the LG G6. In the end, one thing is for certain, it's better than the LG G5 in some areas. I'm talking about the waterproofing, the looks, the camera, even the battery, believe it or not. It's great for movies in the end, for movie buffs who want Dolby Vision and who want to take pretty solid pics with the back camera, which I already told you is solid in pictures, not so much in the video. Now some people go crazy for the wide angle shots in vacations. This is the phone for them for now, but you should take into account the overheating and the not so good filming. So that's about it. Nice personality, pretty good performance, but some flaws which even the price may not make up for them. Okay, so that's about it. A phone that's a flagship, for sure, better than the predecessor, and priced below $500 these days. This is from gsn.com. Bye bye.